You're listening to the Ataaso Outdoors Podcast.
We got him.
He's got some good doo-doo-doos.
The boys are back in the pod bunker. It's been a minute.
It's been a while.
We've been on the road.
We have been. How many episodes were recorded from the truck?
I think 4, wasn't it?
Which I will say,
four?
the audio in the truck is incredible.
Is it really?
You can't even tell you're in the car.
Really?
Wow. That's
Honestly.
surprising.
Is that good?
Guys, welcome back to the Ataaso Outdoors Podcast. I'm Caleb. I'm your host, and I am joined today by my two co-hosts, Reed Robinson
Howdy.
and Hunter Grishke.
Hey,
If you are tuning in for the first time, you're likely to find one of 3 segments. Segment number 1 is What You Got, Buddy. That's where we will bring pre-prepared articles or headlines, and we discuss them at length. They can be as short as 40 minutes or 12, as long as an hour. Segment number 2.
Segment number 2 is our Spotlight series where we search our network in the hunting and outdoors industry. We find cool people, bring them down into the bunker, have a good conversation with them, and bring you guys along for the ride. Segment number 3.
segment number 3 is our head-to-head game show series where we have a quiz master, focus on one topic, ask a bunch of questions, and see who knows more at the end.
You guys clicked on it, so you know what it is today. We are super pumped because live in the pod bunker with us, we have an awesome guest lined up today. We're a little bit sweaty. It's about 93 degrees outside with about 200% humidity, and we're coming fresh off the archery course here at HQ. In the pod bunker, we have Mr. Casey Christman. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's nice to be here, guys.
So I recently reached out to Casey on Instagram because we found him, and we found out he is the manager, like facility manager, correct?
Correct,
Of
yep.
the local archery mega range / pro shop / everything that's tied to Michigan State archery right down the road from us. And I was like, he's cool. We need to have him on. So let's start off by tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised, and what got you to where you are right now.
Sure. So I'm from Michigan originally. I grew up just west of here over in Grand Ledge. And, growing up, I spent a lot of time up north on the Pere Marquette River, doing a lot of fishing, trout fishing for salmon and steelhead, stuff like that. And when I was younger, I wasn't really into hunting a whole lot. But one of my friends, when I was in high school, talked me into going out for opening day of gun season. And I reluctantly agreed to go with this guy. I was like, this is going to be absolutely no fun. I'm just going to sit out there and freeze and I can't move. Like, this is going to be terrible. And that the first morning we went out, I think we saw 76 different deer.
Whoa.
And I had a group of does while we were hunting on the ground, and I had 3 or 4 does come within 3 yards of me. And it was frosty. It was perfect, just a perfect morning. And I remember looking at them, and I could see, I could see their breath, and I could see snot falling off their face. And at that point, I was hooked from the hunting side of things. So,
How old were you when that went down?
I was 16 then.
Okay, so there was no hunting history, anything outdoors related in your family prior to that, outside of fishing.
So my grandfather on one side, he was a big deer hunter, but he only went the first 4 days of gun season, and that was his time with his buddies where he was away. No one else from the family.
Of Michigan.
Yeah. And no one else from the family was allowed to go. So
It was his solitude.
Deer camp.
Yeah. And so I wasn't really introduced to it through him, but the following year I picked up bow hunting. I had a little bit of success, and then it just kind of took off from there. And I've spent. How
do you describe a little bit of success in bow hunting?
So my first season, I had multiple encounters with different bucks. I couldn't close the deal on them, and that was just being a complete novice and me screwing up
Yep.
sitting in the stand.
We've all been there.
Getting experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cut your teeth,
and then,
learning
yep.
how to do it.
And then late season, I was actually able to take a doe with my bow on one of the properties my first year bow hunting. And so I would consider that a successful year. I mean,
Yeah.
I learned a lot.
Yep.
I was able to harvest a deer. And it's just, you know, every single season, I feel like I try to learn something a little bit different for sure.
So what got you into bow hunting? When you first started, you got hooked there, but where did that bug actually hit you as far as the bow hunting realm goes?
Actually, probably that first day when I went out gun hunting, honestly. So I feel like with the archery side of things, you end up having a lot more personal experiences with nature and the animals, and you can't take a shot at, you know, 100, 200 yards away like you can with a rifle or shotgun or muzzleloader or whatever. And I just like that connection. Yeah. And I just like that connection, having those close interactions, with the whitetails. So, literally right when that first year got done, I immediately ran out, got a bow and started preparing for that coming fall. Cause my goal was obviously to try to take a buck. That didn't work out, but I still had a great time screwing up a lot of things.
Do you think it's hard for people that are strictly gun hunters to understand that feeling of that? I don't want to use the word intimacy, but
No, that is the right
I mean,
word.
that's intimacy
In a
with,
non-sexual way. It is
right.
intimate, yeah.
with an animal like that, because I'm thinking about every animal I harvested with a gun, and it was just boom, hit the ground, awesome, woo.
I think it probably depends on the hunter a lot. I mean, if there's hunters that spend the time to put in food plots and track their deer and know their deer and try to manage their herd to the best of their ability, and if they're really getting to know a specific deer and they're actually looking for one specific animal or two specific deer that they've been, you know, tracking for however many years, it seems to me that they could still have that same type of connection. It's just a different way of harvesting them.
Okay. So as far as target archery, tuning, all of that, we were talking a bit while we were on the archery course. When did it become an obsession? So there's a precipice that you hit where it's like, I really like bow hunting, to like tuning arrows and tuning your bow and FOC and all of that stuff.
So I would probably say someplace in the neighborhood like 2007, 2008. I was on a hunt out in Wisconsin, and I showed up to my buddy's place. He owns an archery shop out there, and this guy pulled into his parking lot with, at the time, it was the biggest deer that I'd ever seen in person. It was like 160 something inch 10-point laying in the back of his truck. And so I go out there all Google-eyed, just freaking out about how giant this deer is. And the guy's like, yeah, it's okay. I'm like, what do you mean this isn't okay? Like, what do you usually shoot? And he's like, well, this deer was 7 years old and he needed to go. So I was like, all right, whatever. Well, when we got to talking about it, we were talking about his shot and everything else. And I asked him how far he shot this buck at. And he told me 102 yards.
With a gun?
Nope. With his bow. Yep.
Processing.
So
Processing.
that was my reaction to it. And so I called him a liar. I'm like, I don't believe you. There's a 0% chance that you can shoot that accurately at 100 yards at a whitetail like that.
With a broadhead.
Yeah. And so my buddy Mark, who I was hunting with, he started laughing and he's like, oh no, he can. He, like, every single deer he's killed for the last 4 years has been at 100 or longer with his bow. And I was like, I don't believe you. And so we went out back, and his range back there, he has a big range, like a huge walking range. Well, he has this one set up. There's two big hills and there's a big valley in between them. And it's 102 yards from the top of one to the top of the other one. And he has a broadhead target on one side. So we walk up this ridge, we get up on this hill, and the guy grabs his bow, and he was shooting a muzzy 4-blade, and he draws
fixed.
Yeah. And he,
even better.
And and so this dude tells me, he was like, and like, I can see the spots. It was like a 5-spot target. and he's like, pick the spot. And
I was
like,
guy's a jerk.
I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, pick the spot on the target over there. So I was like, top right. So this dude draws, boom, lets one go, and I'm watching it, and it's dropping, and he hit maybe like a half-inch low from center punching this thing.
My gosh.
And I was like, okay, maybe you did kill that deer at that distance. And so from that point on, I started wanting to extend my shooting range, not necessarily to try to take shots at animals that far away, but just to make myself a better shooter. Well, from that point, I realized that tuning was a major, major part in it, especially when it comes to that long range stuff. So it was probably around then when I started tinkering with stuff and trying to make my equipment work the best that it possibly could. And then I just got lucky running into Glenn Bennett at MSU, who's the MSU archery coach, who's probably the best bow technician I've seen any place in the country.
Wow.
And so I've learned everything from Glenn, how to set up and tune and do everything.
What year was that when the guy shot the...
It was probably 2007, 2008.
So that's what blows my mind even more is not only are we talking about shooting a deer at 102 yards, but we're talking old technology too.
Just stick to string.
Yep.
Like the margin for error, just a little torque of the wrist or like your bubble being off by half.
This dude,
holy buckets.
He was incredible. Like no deer was safe that walked anywhere near him if it was open.
Okay, so since then, what's your longest kill on a deer?
Myself, like 76.
Oh gosh, it's such a far shot.
Didn't we talk about this with Josh Bomar did a video on it where he said the 40 to 60 is the hardest range to kill a deer because they can hear it. So everything inside,
I thought it was Levi Morgan.
Maybe it was Levi.
Levi Morgan.
Yeah, he said everything under 40, they don't have time to react, but from 40 to 60 is the reaction, and then outside of 60, they can't hear anything coming.
I don't know about that based on
on your history. Tell us more.
Yeah. So last year in Ohio, I had probably a mid 170s type deer that came in and he was facing us. I'm staring straight at this thing and he was within 20, 25 yards probably.
What's that? We don't get those in Michigan.
And so he's standing there facing me and I'm in this elevated blind. I'm looking at this deer and I'm like, this is a giant. I need to get this deer on the ground. And he just stood there. This was late November. Rut was pretty much done. Like we've seen some does, but these bucks weren't paying any attention to him. So this buck walks up. He's standing there just looking left and right, deciding where he's going to go. 15 minutes later, he finally turns and gives me a shot. I just had lasered the spot. I had him at 31 yards. I stopped this deer and I don't know if it was the blind but he looked straight at the blind. So he knew something was up. I was already at full draw. I let that arrow go and I watched my arrow go 8 inches over this thing's back. And I immediately looked down at my bow to make sure that I had it dialed to the right distance. I had it perfect. I look over at my cameraman and he's like, what in the hell did you just do? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I have no idea how that happened. And so deer runs off, complete clean miss. And we go back to the hotel, plug in the camera, watch it on the big screen. And we got to the point that we had like duct tape or something. We were putting it on the screen. So we marked where the deer's back was. Yeah. And what I realized was this buck at 31 yards dropped his chest. The second I touched off, the second I let go, dropped his chest completely to the ground. Like you can actually see it in the footage. His chest actually hits the ground. And where my arrow went, had the buck just stood there, I would have smoked him. He would have been dead. But what was crazy, he dropped so much that even if I would have aimed just below his heart, I think it still would have skipped off his back.
Did you touch the shot off right when you stopped him, or was there just couple seconds to where he could have bolt? He was about ready to bolt, and it was just the perfect timing.
He was just standing there staring at the blind. Like I've replayed this thing a million times.
The reaction time of deer is just blows my mind. We've seen it. Daniel had the same thing here at the house.
Yep.
Yeah. It just the amount of like they're able to go down is just blows our mind.
And that was it. You know, that was it. 31 yards. I mean, that was
Super close.
that was
Yeah.
nothing.
Wow.
So I think depending on the deer, and then actually when I was in Illinois one year, one of the other hunters that was in camp, he was talking about it and he was filming, and this dude had this buck. It was a nice 8. It wasn't monstrous, but it was nice. And he had that deer at like 23 yards, and the dude let go and it skipped off the deer's back at maybe 24 yards. But I mean, that deer reacted to it, and that deer was completely calm. He didn't even stop that deer. Like, it stopped on its own. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it just depends on the deer.
That's-
It's just a situation.
That's the name of the game, though.
Yeah.
If you're chasing a live animal, every animal reacts different, and
Yeah.
that's crazy. All right, so let's talk about American Archer a little bit. So, where did that all start? How did you get into that, and what has that journey been like for you over the last however many years?
So I started filming for the Archer back in 2016, probably. And very long story short, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Tom Nelson or not, but
Yeah, I've watched him on MyOutdoorTV for a long time.
okay. So Tom's been in the industry for almost 30 years now. And back in, I think it was 15, it was the fall of 15, I had heard through the grapevine that the studio had let go some guys, or they weren't returning for the following season for whatever reason. And I had known Tom at that point probably for close to a decade, just because one of his best friends is one of my dad's best friends, and we just knew each other
That's
way.
awesome.
So Tom and I used to always text back and forth about like where we were traveling to, what deer we were seeing, and whatever. And so I sent him a text that day, half jokingly, like, hey, if you ever need someone to provide more footage for the show, I'd love to film for you guys. And he responded back. He's like, hell yeah, we'll take you. You're great at killing big deer. And then, so I wasn't sure if he was serious or not, because a text and you can't see emotion behind it. So I sent back, are you serious or are you joking? And he's like, no, come to the studio Monday. And I was like, holy crap.
No way.
I was like, okay, I will do that. So that's kind of how it started. And then my first year with the show, that was a good year. I think I weighed down like 6 kills on camera.
Jeez.
And so
Sweet.
at that point, the studio knew that I wasn't just messing around.
It's no longer amateur hour when Casey's in the
So,
building.
yeah. But so it's just kind of gone from there.
Now, are you self-filming a lot of stuff, or do you have a crew that follows you around? How does that work?
It's probably 50-50.
Okay.
If I'm doing stuff just around Michigan or whatever, I spend a lot of time self-filming, or else I'll be out running camera on my wife, because she's made a few appearances too on some of the episodes. But I have a couple friends here that'll run camera for me occasionally. But when I'm traveling out of state, most of the time, I'll have somebody with me on the camera. The problem is, like this year in Illinois, my cameraman, literally the night before we were supposed to leave, calls me and he's like, hey, I got bad news. I've got COVID and I'm sick as a dog.
Ooh.
And how the guys I was hunting with in Illinois, how they're an outfitter, and how my week was set up, like they had no space to adjust, shift anything. So I had to go, and I explained to them, like, hey, just so you guys know, I'm going to be self-filming this. And we've known each other for a couple of years, but I've never self-filmed there with them. They're like, are you sure you can handle this? And I'm like, oh yeah, I do this all the time. Like we're good. And so I think it was like the second day actually that I was there, I ran an arrow through one, and he's a nice buck. Like he would have been over 160 probably, but he busted off 7 inches when I shot him. I had I had 2 bucks do that to me last year. But
when you shot him, like just dig in as they were running?
Yeah, well, so I had one of my bucks last year, he broke off his beam, like 8 inches of his main beam, running face first into a tree when he died.
Heartbreaker.
And then this Illinois buck, I shot him and he immediately face planted it. And I watched him running and he kept nose diving. And I kept, every time his nose hit, his head would snap forward. And so I was like, I hope he doesn't break a tine. We broke off 7 inches off the inside of his beam, like a non-typical point. And when we found him, I was like, crap, well, that sucks. And then they were like, hey, how is the footage? That's what we're concerned about. Is this going to air? I'm like, oh, it's going to air. It's good. And I showed it to him, and like, I had the deer perfectly in frame, let the arrow go. You can see that. And then the deer, then the hardest part, self-filming, honestly, is tracking the deer after the shot.
Post shot.
Yep. And the deer never leaves the frame. Like the
awesome.
second I let go, I was immediately on the camera following it, and the deer never leaves the frame.
And the next week he gets a sponsorship from Super Glue.
So they were like,
Right.
So
That's my question. If you glue it back on, does Boone and Crockett still count it?
yes.
Really?
Way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So as long as you can prove it and you have the antler, the tine. So like my Oklahoma buck that I shot at the beginning of October last year, when we found him, I walked up to it and the first thing I saw was the busted beam. I mean, he was missing 8 inches and it was a clean, brand new break. And I looked at my cameraman and I was like, was that busted when we shot him? And he's like, no. And then the outfitter walks up with us and he's like, was he busted when you shot him? I'm like, no. And then we looked and the 8 inches of antlers laying at the deer's nose. Like you could see where he ran face first into this giant tree.
That's wild. Huh.
So you can reattach it for score for those purposes. And then I could prove that the Illinois buck had that tine because you can see it when he comes walking in on me, and then I shoot him. And the problem with that, though, is that we couldn't find that tine, so that one's gone.
That makes me wonder, out of the couple that I've shot that have had busted tines, if that was the similar situation. So I have that first big one from 2019, and then I had that other one that had a bunch of busted off tines that looked fresh too. If that happened too, I've never even thought about it till now.
So I've never had that happen any other year. And then this year this past season I had my Oklahoma buck broke a beam, Illinois broke a tine, and then I went down specifically looking for one deer in Kentucky late season, and he was probably pushing 150 inches ish. We had pictures of him 3 days before I went down there. The buck comes walking out and like my second day there, and I can see his left side, and I'm like, oh, this is him. He's got that 13-inch 2 on him. I draw, let go. He makes it 40 yards, and I watch him die in this cornfield. And then I go walking up there, and I look. He'd busted off his G2, both G4s, and both brow tines.
Jeez.
Not when I shot him. Like in the 3-day window between me getting pictures of him,
bruiser,
and then going down there. He busted off all those tines.
Wow.
So
when it comes to self-filming, I know, have you found that it takes the joy out of hunting for you because of that added element and like the pressure of having to have this shot? Where's your mind at with all of that?
No. It's honestly just become second nature to me, carrying all my gear out, like the camera bag and the camera arm or the tripod or whatever. Like I don't even think about it. It's just part of my equipment that I always have with me now.
How long did it take to get you to that point where it was just like, oh yeah, it's just the camera gear now? Was it weird for a while?
Oh, it was terrible.
Okay.
For sure. It was horrible. When I first started, I was like, this is ridiculous. Why am I doing this? This is so much extra crap. And now I don't even think about it. Like it's just it probably took 4 or 5 years before I didn't even think about it. Like now, like if I'm going out specifically to try to smack a bunch of does, I usually don't try and run camera on if I'm going out just to doe hunt. And it feels weird
not having
it. Yeah.
That's
like
interesting.
Like taking a shot and be like,
yeah, like, that is very odd for sure. Like when I don't have to take everything, or when I'm just like if it's a late season doe hunt and I'm just carrying out a little pack in my bow, and I'm like, I gotta be missing something here, but I'm not. It's just.
Do you gun hunt at all anymore or no?
No.
So you're strictly bow.
Yep.
Attaboy. Let's go.
If I'm in Michigan during gun season, which I'm usually not, I'll still sit with my bow. I have all my orange on, and I'll sit there. But I also set up most of my spots, so it's kind of irrelevant from a shooting perspective. Like if there's a deer that I want to shoot that's within range for like gun season, for instance, I could still shoot it with my bow. Like I don't have anything set up, so it ends up being a shot that I wouldn't be comfortable taking. So
Have you broken into other species yet, like elk and moose and mule deer, or are you still pretty strictly towards whitetail?
no, so whitetails are my
kryptonite.
Yeah, whitetails are my thing. Like I guess it could just be because I'm from the Midwest here and that's what I know. But I went on a bear hunt a few years ago and took a nice black bear. The one problem with for me is trying to do so many different out of state hunts. I only have so much time that I can allot myself, away from my family and away from work and stuff. So if I'm looking at like a Western hunt, whether that's for muleys or elk or whatever, I have to take into consideration the amount of time, that I'm going to be gone. So I might only be able to do one elk hunt, and that's going to take away from one of my whitetail hunts later in the season that I can hunt semi-locally, like within driving distance.
Has there ever been an opportunity to do this full time for you?
No.
Okay.
No, that's not.
Is it off the table in your mind?
My opinion, that's not how the industry operates. If I would have gotten into this maybe a decade earlier, absolutely. But at this point, how the industry is, there's no way that that's feasible.
Break that down for me when you say how the industry is.
So there's so much good quality content out there. Because like if you think back, say 20 years ago, 2 decades ago, the only platform that people could see outdoor shows on was through like the Outdoor Channel or the Pursuit Channel or whatever. There wasn't content on YouTube. YouTube wasn't a huge big thing, and there weren't other streaming services and stuff. And there wasn't social media like there is where you can just, jump on and see people's hunts. So 20 years ago, the industry and these companies from a monetary perspective could only market through shows being broadcast on
Outdoor Channel.
Actual TV. Now there's so many different options, streaming options, whether it's YouTube or MyOutdoorTV or Waypoint TV or whatever.
Right.
The dollar value to be able to operate full time as a living just isn't there, because there's no company that's going to pay what they did 20 years ago in comparison to what they're willing to pay today. Like they're probably paying equally as much money out, but it's going to so many different places and people.
So really the only way to do it successfully these days is between like brand deals, affiliate marketing, and like YouTube views.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's how you monetize it. Outside of that, it's not worth it. Here's my question. If you were to do it full time, would it taint the experience of it, or would you die to do it full time? No, now that you have a family, you're married, you've got a kid and stuff, would that put stresses in that area? That's just out of curiosity.
It depends I suppose it depends how the show was operated and what the expectation would be for me. If I was having to produce 12 full episodes a year and it was just me, that would not be enjoyable. Like I can't see doing that. I mean, the amount of B-roll and stuff that ends up having to get filmed and done on the back end and the different promotions and everything else. Like I'm not, that doesn't, it sounds semi-enjoyable, but at the same time it
becomes a production.
Yeah.
It's a production.
It gets old. Yeah. When you're having to go step through every single thing, like, well, did we get this shot? Well, did we get this shot? Well, did we get this shot? And then having to do that, for exponentially more episodes. I don't know that I might not go crazy.
We talk about that a lot with our media guys, where it's the people who are consuming when they go on the MyOutdoorTV or they go on YouTube and they're watching the video, they don't realize how much time goes into the back end of it, between B-roll and like, if you didn't get that certain shot, okay, well, we got to go out to the field and recreate that shot of you walking to the blind or you climbing up in the tree stand and stuff, in these hours that compound on each other. Not to mention the post-production and like the lighting and the color correction of all these things, and just it's an iceberg.
Well, and I mean, honestly, like if you think about it, because everybody sees, a 10 or 15 minute clip or whatever of somebody taking a big animal or whatever. And what they don't think about is like, if I air, say, a Michigan hunt, for instance, and I kill a decent buck, chances are that it is hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on stand, and then people just see that little 10-minute clip. And,
It's half the season. Right?
20
Yeah.
sits, 5 hours apiece.
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. So it's definitely time consuming. Like I love it right now for sure, but it from a full time thing. And then also I know that with that, there also are attached a lot of other things from the marketing side of things where you end up having to, go to trade shows and do all this other stuff and make appearances for people and everything. And
are you having to do that at all right now?
no. So I've been invited to a few, but at this point I'm not having to make any appearances. It's interesting because like I went down to ATA this year because I wanted to check out all the new stuff because we added retail at Demmer at MSU there. And I'm always looking to bring new companies and stuff in.
I didn't know how recent is that?
So we brought the retail side of stuff on probably like a year and a half ago now. We had our first companies come in.
No kidding.
And they just wanted to,
that's awesome.
the university wanted to test out the waters kind of with it. They told me I could, but on a limited basis. And then it did very well. I brought in Hoyt and Matthews to start. And that did well. And so I've gotten to add more and more companies.
So when it comes to buying bows, tuning bows, that kind of stuff, we can go all the way through Demmer for something like that now through a train.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Boys, that
Game
just
changer.
changed the game. I mean, here's the thing too, is we've had conversations with multiple people recently. We've had text messages going back and forth of hey, who in the area is good at tuning bows and setting up bows. And most of the shops that we can name off they're okay, but still subpar. Like,
Well, and they're all 45 minutes away.
yeah. The
They're a long ways
closest
away.
the closest ones would be Shoebacks and Jackson,
Mm-hmm.
Sunrise and Fenton, and then Becker's.
Yep.
Those are about the three that we can think of in that 100-mile radius.
Yep.
But still, to have somebody like you that can tune stuff, and we can go to you to purchase the bow and everything, dude.
So
I'm all about it. 2026.
like
I told myself I'm not buying a new bow until another couple years.
okay.
Not Matthew's next model, but the model after that. That's
Okay.
when I get to buy, and that's what makes me feel better about my Halon.
All right, fair enough. Well, you can always come in for a tune-up too to make sure that thing's putting bullets through paper.
We actually did just paper tune it pretty recently, and it was doing all right. So, not that means the world, but
I have never.
That thing
paper
shoots
tuned.
really nice.
it's a great shooting bow.
You shoot that bow really well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mine's just kind of like a redneck everything. Shrink wrap vanes, over the counter arrows,
eBay specials.
Yeah, it's rough. It still shoots pretty good though. Like I can drive tacks at 70, 80, no problem. But
So
imagine
if you did custom fletchings. So here's the interesting thing that I've realized that a lot of people don't understand that come through our doors over at Demmer there is that one, not every bow naturally spins the arrow clockwise or counterclockwise like people think. Like the rule of thumb used to be if you're a right-handed shooter, put a right-handed or right offset or right helical onto it. Lefties put left on there. What's interesting is a lot of these companies are dictating which way your arrow is spinning naturally off the string by which way the serving is actually put on. So a lot of these manufacturers, how they're actually building them now for most right-handed shooters, the arrow is actually coming off spinning counterclockwise. So it's spinning left. So when you're shooting, if you set your arrow up with a right helical or right offset, there's going to be a delay because your bow is naturally trying to spin it left counterclockwise.
Right,
and you
right
have
as
it,
in the leading edge is further right than the tail edge.
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
right helical.
And,
Yeah.
Yep.
And so what people are getting is when they shoot, the bow is naturally trying to spin it counterclockwise, and they have it set up so the fletchings are going to spin it clockwise. So if you watch, PJ Riley from Lancaster actually did a slow-mo video of this. So the second you touch off, it's almost like a knuckleball. It comes off the string and it's just dead coming off the string until the fletchings can take over because there's more surface area there to actually twist it. So if you do your setup, so you're following that natural rotation of the arrow, it's immediately spinning, coming right off the string properly.
And that's all based on your bow tech, like how he put the serving on. Or each bow will shoot different.
That's how your strings are, right?
It depends on the string manufacturer.
Holy
okay. So it's not like a halon, like one halon to the next, or like one V3 to the next will shoot different.
So every manufacturer is going to do it the same, for sure.
So if you're running ABB versus gas, it's going to release the arrow different.
It may, but they might serve them correctly. But so my thing is, like, every single setup I do, I always have someone shoot a bear shaft, we'll mark it, and they'll shoot super close so we can see which way it's actually rotating that arrow coming off the string before we end up telling them to build arrows. Or they can just go straight fletch and not get quite the amount of rotation.
These are those times that, like, we feel pretty teched out.
Yeah, until we bring guys like Casey in and we realize
we got this thing dialed, man. We got stabilizers and things are balanced out. It's
about as coolest thing as I've got is a drop away rest and a dial, a slider sight. Okay, so that being said, in order to set up a time with you to come in and do tuning, like look at stuff, pro shop adjustments, what does that look like for you? Is that something people hire you to do? Is it something where you need a membership to Demmer to do? How does that work?
Anybody can come in anytime that we're open, and myself or Glenn Bennett are there.
Okay.
Most days. To work on people's equipment. The one downside that we've been running into recently is there's a lot of shops. We're small enough right now that we're not swamped, I guess, to say. Like, we're doing more than fine, but we're not swamped. And what I've noticed with a lot of other shops is they have people setting up bows that don't, it's the small things that are going to make it shoot really well. And they're not doing the really small things. Like, I'm not going to name the place, but there's one place that consistently sets up QAD rests wrong.
Is it southeast of where you live? Or, sorry, southwest of where you live?
I'm not going to say.
Okay.
Because I said where I'm from.
So. Oh, no, fresh. Sorry. Yes.
Eating rivers.
So
crap. My QAD rest needs to be adjusted.
So the, like, I legit 2 weeks ago had to fix 20 rests.
Yikes.
And not just from the one shop that I was saying consistently set them up. Like, they were bringing them in from all over, and I don't know how word got out that week, but someone knew someone, and then that person knew someone. Then they're like, "Oh, didn't you have your bow set up at wherever? Take it over to Casey to make sure everything's in time." And we put it through paper, and it was terrible. And then we looked at stuff, and we had to fix a ton of things on a lot of these bows. And I think that's not because people don't know what they're doing for setup. It's just that they don't have the time to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, between Glenn and myself, like, most of the time, if we're setting up somebody's rig, it's taken us an hour and a half to 2 hours to get it tuned how we want it. Because I want every bow that's walking out the door to be shooting how I would want to shoot it.
Now, is that a flat fee that you guys charge, or is it an hourly rate for, depending on how long it takes? What's it generally look like?
It's an hourly rate.
Okay.
Yeah. And then it's also broken. It depends though. Cause, like, it's broken down. We have a different way we do things too, where, like, if it's just a center shot adjustment or just a cam timing issue or something like that, like, we might have that. If it's just one thing, like, we'll just break it down is to $10 for this. But if it ends up being a whole swath of different things or whatever, we might end up just being like, "Oh, this is just the 1 hourly rate," rather than nickel and diming people for this,
10, 20.
What is your hourly rate?
So it's $30 every 30 minutes is how it's broken down.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Gentlemen, you heard it. Gentlemen and ladies, Greater Lansing area, this guy. That's a game changer. Dude, that's huge, because it's more been a procrastination thing of, it shoots okay and things, but when having the course and knowing that you can be, whether or not, if I'm off by 10 inches to the right, is it me, or is it a mix between me and a bad tune?
Yeah.
I've never had my bow paper tuned.
See, what's the other interesting thing is, because what sights do you guys shoot?
I shoot the, we both have the Spot Hog Fast Eddie, and then he's the HHA Tetra.
Okay. Have you guys ever checked the third axis on those?
So last summer, I worked on the third axis with my cousin, and I don't know if it worked because at TAC, it's like when I'm shooting downhill, crazy distances, I'm right, consistently right, uphill, consistently left.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's the taking it in and out of the case where my third axis got off again, but that could easily be.
So, and that's the interesting thing is like most people don't even think about that. And like most shops that I've been to.
Tim Boots was like, "What the frick is a third axis?"
He's like, "What are you guys talking about?" Like, it's the third axis, man.
At least we know we're not totally inept.
But like most shops, like when they sell somebody a site, like one of these higher end sites, whether it's a fast idea, like that's a lot of money going out the door, you know?
Right.
And what they'll do is they'll put it on, they'll set first and second axis for people, get them kind of set at 20, maybe they won't, I don't know, but they won't do anything or even mention the third axis adjustment to it. And then people are, whether it's super downhill, super uphill, or how they're sliding it even, it's the pin's not going completely vertical up and down. And then when they're trying to hold, it's not square. So at distance, like you were saying, it's going to consistently hit one way or the other.
So for everybody outside of that 100-mile radius of Lansing that can't make it in to see you, what would be the top 3 things that they can do with their bow right now to try to tune it to make it shoot better outside of like third axis for sure? Because with a tree stand, that's a huge deal. What are some of the other things that they could be doing proactively?
The third axis adjustment, I think, is big for people if they're shooting distance. But for those, like I have a lot of guys that come in, they're just bow hunters. They have no interest in shooting any type of distance. They're not wanting to shoot past 40.
Boo.
It doesn't make that much of a difference for those shorter distances like
get a crossbow.
But I would say the biggest thing is for people to make sure that center shot is set up right. And cam timing is another huge thing that is frequently off. And then if they have a drop away rest, specifically making sure that the timing is actually right in their drop away.
That's cool.
Are simple things that people can do.
Dude, you are a wealth of knowledge in that realm, and I'm so thrilled to utilize that here soon.
I'm glad to hear that.
How can we book an appointment with you?
Stop in anytime.
Okay, I will. I'm gonna have to. I'll dig your arrow out of that log, and I'll bring it over to you sometime next week. All right, let's dive in to a little bit more about you. We like asking everybody this question because we get an array of answers. What are you passionate about?
Deer hunting.
I love the immediate answer.
That just didn't miss a beat. Okay, so let's peel back the layers of deer hunting. What facets of deer hunting just like drive you? Is it everything as a whole?
Everything. So
okay.
It's funny because depending on what season it is will dictate what my favorite thing is. So
land management, food, prep.
Yep. So like if we're talking January, well, I'm still hunting in January a lot of the time. So we'll say February. At that point, I'm running a boatload of cameras trying to inventory my deer, seeing what bucks survived and where they're located at. So then that way, come shed season, I can try to have a little bit better idea where they're going to be at. From that point, we roll right into food plots, and that's my favorite time of the year. Yeah. And then we roll into velvet scouting, and then that's my favorite time of the year. And then
that's awesome.
I think I know I'm driving my wife crazy with all the deer stuff because I'm always talking about it. And actually, do any of you guys have kids?
I personally don't know.
Nope.
I got 3
step-kids.
Kind of. Almost.
Okay.
Another week.
Okay.
He'll be married next weekend.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Are any of them girls?
2.
Okay.
The youngest 2. Yeah.
So I got pro tip. If you ever have to go to a daddy-daughter dance,
already did it
type deal.
Yep.
Okay, so here's what you do, because most of the time your kid's gonna run off, right? And for all the listeners too, this is great. If you got daughters and you're having to take them to a daddy-daughter dance and your kid just completely leaves you and you're just standing there in the corner like a weirdo by yourself
while they're doing the locomotion.
Yeah. What you do is get out your phone and you pull up trail camera photos on your phone.
Yep.
And then you go and stand next to another dad and you tip it towards them so they can see it. And if you don't get a reaction from them in a few seconds, you step down the line and go to the next one and stand there.
That's a whole new.
And eventually you will find another dad that's like, "Oh, that's a sweet buck." where's that from? And then you got
I'm not telling, but where are yours?
Yeah. And then you got a deer hunting buddy to discuss deer stuff with while your kids are running around doing
Yep.
whatever.
Pro tips. Let's freaking go.
Works great. Works every time. I do it on the airplane sometimes too. My wife hates it when I do that. But if I'm bored and my kid's drawing or whatever, and I'll look across the aisle, and if there's some guys sitting there, I'm like, oh, they might be hunters. I'll break out my phone and kind of tip it towards them so they can see it. And then if I get a reaction,
It's generally when I'm watching American Archer on my outdoor TV that they'll be like, hey. So that with a side note, shout out to all the spouses and significant others that are extremely supportive of because if I'm being honest, it has gone from a hobby to a passion,
Obsession.
an obsession.
Yeah.
I think we looked up the definition of obsession, and it was I think it was a passion is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But
I feel like I just lucked out because my fiance loves hunting. So I was like, hey, do you want to go hunting tonight on a date? She's like, yeah, let's go.
that's great.
Yeah, I'm like, this is perfect. She shoots a bow. Everything's good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then these guys are sitting here like, hey,
you want to come with?
like hunting season. And they're like, yep, go do your thing.
For us, for at least Gracie sent me a video the other day that was really funny. It was this lady that says, well, you marry a hunter and you think it's just going to be during hunting season. And she goes, no, because you've got to put the cameras out, change the batteries in the camera, put the SD cards, check the SD cards, plant the seed, wait for the seed to grow, fertilize the seed, harvest the seed, and then you get to go check cameras again, and then you set stands, and then you cut shooting lanes, and it's just like layer
Never
on
ending.
layer
It's a
on layer on layer. Then you deer hunt, and
We
then you
just want to
process
be
the
amongst
meat.
the trees, okay, woman?
And then you start all over again, and it's just a cycle. Then, oh no, it's turkey season, and it's just it's layers.
Never ending.
What's your favorite whitetail recipe? Since you're a big whitetail guy, you're putting meat in the freezer for sure.
Yeah, a lot.
We got to get gains like that. You don't not eat it. Goodness.
What's interesting is, like, I love venison. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love venison, but I think my wife would literally eat it every single day.
Wow.
Like,
Good woman.
That's huge.
Every single day.
That's a big deal. That
Like-
means she wasn't scarred by a church potluck back in the day.
Well, no, actually, so she was.
Gosh dang it, Baptists.
Like, she did not. So she did not like venison. And when we first started dating,
Never
so
misses.
it
We need to have a
was
shirt that says bow hunters against Baptists.
Never.
so our first year dating, I was hunting on a piece of her family's ground. I shot this doe, and then I told her, I'm like, hey, come over. I'm going to make us dinner. And she's like, well, what are we having? I'm like, oh, we're going to have venison steaks. She was like, okay, I guess. And so I marinated them and cooked them. And then after that, she's like, what is this? And I was like, it's
That's how you know you got them.
it's venison. She's like, this is amazing. Can we have it next time I come over? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And then it's just kind of gone from there. So now when we get closer to deer season, it's always, are you going to shoot a doe right away? Are you going to go out for early doe season?
Let's go.
And I'm like,
That's
oh,
awesome.
can do that. I was like, you can go though. Like, I don't want to sit in the heat.
Does she hunt?
Yeah. She's made a few apperances on the show. She's taken
Oh, that's right. You
That's
did say
great.
that.
a few bucks in Michigan. And then it was funny for her first, like, I think 4 bucks she killed. Cumulatively, she hunted less than 45 minutes. Like, that's like, I've had a few bucks that have been so patternable that I've like called out the time that I've been able to shoot them. Like, I had one a few years ago. He was
That's
like,
next level.
he was like,
That's awesome.
he was a really nice 10. He was a Michigan deer. I think he went like 142 or something. And I told one of my buddies leading up to the season that I was going to kill the deer October 1st. And then he and I were joking around like September 30th. And he was like, well, what time are you going to kill him? And I was like, I will be calling you at 6:51 after I send the arrow at 6:50. And he was like, okay, whatever. Well, next night, October 1st, I'm sitting in the tree. Sure enough, this buck comes walking in. I draw, let an arrow go. And then it was just dumb luck, obviously. They showed up at the exact minute. But I look at my phone, it's 6:50. So I waited until it turned to 6:51. And then I called my buddy. I'm like, Dean, guess what? And he's like, what time is it? And I'm like, 6:51. He's like, no way, and freaked out. And
That's awesome.
it worked out
You're
perfect.
a wizard.
But so like for my wife, when she first started, I would make sure that it was a buck that was very patternable for her to get on. And I could be like, oh, if we go out tonight, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get a shot. In the back of my mind, I'm like, she's going to get a shot for sure. And so it worked out great for the first like 4. And then we went out of state. I took her down to Kentucky with me, and I was saying, I'm like, just so you know, this might take more than just our first sit.
It's not shooting fishing the bear anymore.
She's like, yeah, no big deal, whatever, that's fine. We're going down there to hunt. So our first out of state hunt, we sit down in the blind. It was raining, and I'd seen a few does filtering off this ridge, and then I look up, and I'm like, here comes that really big 8, and he's coming straight to us. And I'm like, well, here's your shooter. So he comes in 15 yards. She lets one go, smokes this thing. He runs back up where he came from. He falls over dead. I look at my phone. We'd been in the blind for like an hour and 10 minutes, I think. And so I was like, well, your one sit, kill a deer luck continues, because we didn't need to put any time in to get this done.
Wow.
That's awesome. What a cool relationship. And I love that she loves venison now, which is a big deal.
Yeah, that's huge.
We've talked about this for years. It's usually people that have had bad experiences in the past, and how you prepare it is so important.
Yep.
And
so back to your original question that started all that. So my favorite recipe, probably, we have this marinade that I got from one of my buddies way back when.
Tell me more.
It's just a really basic one. Like there's like,
sometimes those are the best though.
Well, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff in it, but like if you look up like venison marinade, you're probably going to find it. But there's like a bunch of soy sauce and cayenne pepper and Worcestershire
sauce.
and like just a bunch of other stuff that goes in with it. And then you let it sit at least 8 hours or whatever. Throw it on, cook it to medium rare, something like that. Pull it off, and it's
nothing
incredible.
else. Just marinate it and then straight up on the grill or on the smoker.
Grill.
Okay.
Yep.
Dude, I love it.
Yep.
Are you more of a morning sit or an afternoon sit kind of guy?
I only sit mornings.
Ooh.
No, I only sit mornings, like October 26th through mid-November.
So you're a morning rut guy for the most part.
Yep. And the reason I don't, I should say that there are times when I'll sit a morning if I know that I have a buck that seems to be very patternable and doing something in the morning. Like if he's consistently walking by an hour and a half after sunup, okay, I'll go try to kill the deer. But the set has to be right for me to get in, so I'm not blowing everything out in the dark.
Yeah.
Or them not seeing you from where they're feeding and see you climbing up.
Exactly. So like I feel like a lot of hunters do a lot more damage early season than not.
So what you're saying is it's better for most setups. It's better to be able to sneak in the afternoon and catch them on the way out to feed from the bed than it is to sneak in the morning and potentially catch them when they're coming back to bed.
Depending on the set. Like I've had a few of them. I used to have one place north of where I live that was the most dynamite morning spot ever. Like I would go in there any time of the season and know that I wasn't going to be blowing deer out of there, and that they were going to end up filtering right past me to go bed. And it was far enough from their main destination feed field that they weren't coming through until at least 45 minutes after sunup. So that spot worked out. But most of my setups, at least in Michigan, are very difficult to get into in the mornings because you're having to cross so much open ag or do whatever. And so I end up blowing deer out.
They can spot you from a mile away.
Exactly. So I don't want to end up, I feel like most of the time, I feel like it does more damage than good for the people that go in. And I don't want to overhunt sets either. Like I have a bunch of sets that I might not even sit for an entire season. Like they're there, I have them hung, ready to go, but I don't sit them for the whole year just because the wind might not be right, or due to crop rotation, or not wanting to even hunt a specific deer because I know I might want to let an arrow go if I see it. And I really wanted to make it another year.
That just told me everything I need to know about you. You and I are the same person.
Yeah.
So let's, as we're getting into like the last 20 minutes here of our episode, let's talk gear with you.
Okay.
Because we are absolute gear nuts. We love everything about it. Some guys we have down here are like, it's whatever, you know, we'll make it work. But we've got some guys that are gear heads. So we want to figure out, what is Reed pointing at?
The can is moving and no one's touching it.
I think it's the
It's the fan.
the fan. That's crazy.
What kind of bunker is this?
Well, I like move my foot and all of a sudden the can's like shifting away and I'm like, oh, God.
Earlier, I felt my pant leg going like this, and I was like, "Am I shaking? Like what?" And I was like, "Oh,
All right.
Socorro para
Reel it back in like,
Oh, no,
Casey Sharks.
Sorry, Casey.
All right, let's talk gear. So, top 5 pieces of gear. You're going to the Whitetail Woods. What are the top 5 pieces of gear that you have to have?
Ozonics.
Ozonics?
Oh, I don't hear many guys using that.
You're the first one, I think, that has talked about that. Do you do that instead of pre-scent control or scent away spray, anything like that?
No. So
that's strictly.
So Ozonics, how technical do you want me to get? Like, I could just say my bow, so that's gonna like encompass like
Weapon excluded.
Okay.
So it's top 5 pieces of gear, weapon excluded.
Okay. And this is also not including camera gear, I'm assuming, because I can't forget.
Nope.
Okay.
We
So
can touch
actually-
on it. If you're like a camera geek and you love camera
No,
gear and stuff.
I don't at all.
All right, we'll skip over that then.
Okay.
So
All right.
this is hunting gear only, weapon excluded, top
Okay.
5.
So Ozonics is number 1. I would honestly, I've told people semi-jokingly before, but I would rather forget my bow than my Ozonics unit.
It's that
Wow.
It's that good.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
thought, like, when they first came out, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then Tom Nelson actually told me, he's like, hey, you need to try this. Like, take mine because you're going on this early September hunt. I went down to Kentucky for their opener and it was like 100 degrees. And so I was worried about scent control. So I take this Ozonics, screw it up in the tree, set it up how it says, turn it on. And the first night that my cameraman and I are sitting in this tree, we had like probably 10 fully mature deer straight downwind from us. I mean, could not have been any more downwind. And they stopped and they threw their noses up and kind of sniffed, but they're like, meh. And then they just kept going. Like it,
Whoa.
like it. And then, so I told my other friend about it, who was running camera for me that year in Illinois. And he's like, you're a liar. That's stupid. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. We'll see. And one night we're sitting out there and we had a group of probably 6 or 7 big does and they walked straight downwind from us and they actually were curious about the ozone scent and actually came in closer to inspect it. And like we had them at 15 yards straight downwind from us and they were right there and never got us at all. And it's like, I mean, between all the camera gear and then 2 grown dudes up in a tree, scent control's hard. Like, so Ozonics would definitely be number 1.
My question with the Ozonics is, so we hunt the wind. Like that's what we do. If I go to a stand, it's because I've set it on HuntWise.
Mhm.
I have all my stands set up and I know this stand I can only hunt if it's a south-southeast wind going this direction. And it alerts me, it tells me that.
Yep.
And strictly because of scent control. So
Yep.
from an ozonic standpoint, has that opened it up to where you no longer have to hunt the wind, where it's just like you can recognize pattern and it does not matter where the wind is blowing?
It does. If it gets real, if it's blowing hard, that makes a difference. So
Okay.
like if you're hunting on a windy day when the wind's hitting into the teens, yeah, I don't think that it's as effective from what I've seen.
But anything sub 10 miles an hour, you
Yeah.
know, just a light breeze.
Yep.
That's crazy.
So it's almost like a thermocell. Like it just doesn't work if the wind is
Yes.
ripping.
Holy
Okay.
smokes. That's
Yeah.
a game changer.
yeah.
The second thing is a new spray company. I mean, they've been around for a few years, but I just started using them last year. It's called Scent Thief. Have you guys heard of that company?
Nope, not yet, but we will.
So it's interesting. I talked to these guys probably 2 years ago. They sent me some stuff and they're like, you spray it on your clothes before you go out. You spray it when you're in the tree and then you spray it every 2 hours. You reapply it around you, like on the tree and stuff. And they're like, it takes away the animal's ability to smell. And I was like, I don't know about that. And so I was thinking it was like nose jammer. And I'm like, and I've used nose jammer.
Okay, I've heard of nose jammer.
And so I've tried nose jammer in the past, and I was not overly thrilled about the results I got from it.
Is nose jammer that little unit that like diffuses stuff?
No, so that's the
Thought those were buck bombs.
It
Nose jammer's like
so nose jammers.
blue bottle with the scope on it with the deer on it.
It's like red, and it's a red can, but. Anyway, long story short.
Talk more about scent thief.
So the scent thief stuff, like I was like, I don't know if I really believe that. And they're like, and then the guy I was talking to, he's like, anything with a nose, it will take away the ability to smell. And he's like, there's a scent to it, but the deer aren't going to find it to be threatening. It's not a predatory cue for them. And so I got this package sent to my house. I break the stuff out and I open it up. And people will frequently say that it smells like something different depending on them, I guess. But to me, it smells like if you took Vicks Vapor Rub and dirt, like dirt spray, and mixed them together.
Sounds like the scent wafers.
And like
the earth scent wafers.
Yeah, but then mix Vicks Vapor Rub in with it.
Whoa.
And so like when I smelled it, I was like, there's a 0% chance. No way am I going to take this into the woods with me. Like
they're going to smell me.
Yeah. I was like, there's no way. And then, so like, we're getting closer to hunting season. I'm like, you know what? I gotta test it on something. And I didn't want to do it to my dog because my dog he's kind of dumb. So anyway, I was like, I know I'm just going to try it on myself and see if this works. So my wife's cooking onions and peppers on a pan in the kitchen. So it obviously smells. So I walk outside, I take a rag with me, I spray this scent thief all over this rag, put it on my face, start
Chloroform, hit the deck.
Yeah. start taking
like, we got another one.
Huge whiffs of this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I can definitely smell that. And I wait a minute, and then I walk inside and I could not smell anything.
What?
And I was like,
wow.
And I was like, my mind just is blown right now. And then I got to thinking about it, and we had dinner. And I couldn't taste anything because I couldn't smell anything, so I couldn't taste anything.
Sure you didn't have COVID?
Right. So we joked, we started calling it COVID spray. But so like, and eventually a little while later, my sense of smell did come back. And I'm like, okay, well, before I travel with this out of state, I want to test it here. So early doe season rolls around. And where I was sitting, I knew that I had a terrible wind for the spot. Like my wind was blowing straight to where all these deer were going to be coming from. I didn't have any good bucks in the area that I knew of. It was just a bunch of does, big mature does were there. So I go in, spray everything down. And I'm talking like fully mature giant does, straight down wind walk straight to me on the path that I thought they would. And they came within 10 yards of my stand, and not one of them got me. Like they stopped and they smelled.
Wow.
But then they just kept going. I could have killed any of them.
So you substitute that for the ozonics, or using both now?
I'm running both probably 50% of the time.
Okay.
And then I always am using the scent thief now.
That's wild.
Wow.
That makes me wonder how many deer died during 2020 when all the deer were getting COVID.
Oh, yeah.
How many of them lost their scent? And they just walked straight into the terrible
We
situation.
look at our population kill numbers, and it just like the harvest numbers were
You
up.
got to imagine there was an uptick in deer kills solely from COVID.
It wasn't an uptick in hunters. It was
Right, exactly. More deer died this year, less hunters. How'd that work?
Right.
Deer can't smell crap.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, every buck I killed last year was completely straight downwind. My wife's buck she killed last year was straight downwind from us.
Dude, I will take your word for it, because there's a couple sets that I have at this property down south from where we're at, and it's tough depending on the day, because I've got some great stands, but getting into them is really, really difficult because of the way the wind blows.
Yeah.
And so scent thief, right?
Yeah, I tell you what, we got, because I'm carrying it at Demmer right now. Like I only carry stuff there. I only carry stuff that I know that they say that like the consumer is the person that you're supposed to sell to and it's what the consumer wants. Well, at Demmer, I've pretty much brought in everything that I trust and I like.
See, but that's what I like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's reliable.
I like that because here's the thing with stuff like that is you've got such a consumeristic society with Cabela's and Shields and everything. It's just you've got everything right there. Here's 50 different things choose from. I would rather do my research and listen to guys like you where there's things that are tried and true in the field.
Yep. And if you ever want to come test it out, I got bottles of it that I have a test bottle that
we can sniff it.
Yeah, you can come sniff it and not be able to smell for a while.
Dad's with
like,
newborns changing diapers. All right, let's do this.
So I was on a conference call recently, and one of the guys was joking that's actually what he does with his newborn.
Does he really?
He does. He puts on a like a medical face mask like we used to have to wear. Thank God we don't now, but
no kidding.
during
Have
COVID.
to is
But
like
he would-
very
he would spray that. He sprays the inside of it and then puts it on. So all he's smelling is the scent thief.
Multi-use,
That's
baby.
funny.
Yep.
We need to start with guests. I think we need to start doing like gear inventory for everybody. Just to like show the different brands and what they use because this is so far is the most interesting.
Yeah,
this has been
for
fast.
sure.
It seems like you're really scent focused. So like, what's your third scent item?
That's pretty much it for
scent control.
Stuff,
All
yeah.
right, so hit us with number 3 for gear.
Probably gonna have to go with rangefinder.
Okay.
I
What are you
guess.
running?
Good choice.
Well, I've got a Loopold and I have a Bushnell, and they seem both give me the same yardage, which is nice because some of my members at Demmer the other day we were trying to figure out where 140 yards was, and we were shooting it, and we shot 4 different rangefinders, and we got 4 different distances. That there was like almost 9 yards of variance.
Sounds like our group.
We run into that a lot between Vortex, Bushnell, and then we've got a 6 Sauer in
We
the
just
group.
need to go to a football field and shoot it and see who's actually right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I've done, our Olympic target range that we have there is measured. We tape measured that thing.
Yeah.
So that's the best way to do it.
And then
ticker tape.
When we go to see him
Wait, I
to
have a ticker
get
tape.
our garbage
Yeah.
setups tuned,
We'll whip them out.
so we actually have like a known 70 meter that was measured out. And so we're talking 76.4 yards or something like that. And then the 50 meters, so you're talking like 54.2 or something like that. But those are for sure exact if you come out and measure them there, which is nice. But so rangefinder, and then I always have a backup release.
That's
Smart. Yeah.
super
I like
smart.
Shad
Super
Yoder
smart.
was the other guy that did that.
Yep.
Which he actually texted me just now, and he just bought a lift.
He
Did he
told me
really?
that as well.
Yep,
He
he went
didn't
from
buy
Hoyt-
it from Demmer though.
No, yeah, he went from Hoyt to Matthews. So welcome, brother.
Yeah, he had the what? The RX
RX-7.
7.
Yep.
Did he get the 80-pound mods?
No, he's small and frail.
Okay.
No, I don't know if he got the 80-pound mods or not. He could have. I think he could pull back. He's got dad strength now. So
Why should have you gotten the 80-pound mods? There seemed to be something in your voice there when you asked.
Oh no, I was
have you
just
seen the
curious.
size of this
Okay.
man?
Yeah.
He's like, is it big?
Did he get the 100-pound mod?
Huge.
But-
You're not pulling 200 pounds. Don't talk to me.
I draw a crossbow back from the side.
That's the funniest crap I've heard all day.
All right, so that was number 3. Wait, no, we did Ozonics, Scent Thief, Backup Release,
Rangefinder.
Rangefinder.
You have
Yep.
one more.
Yeah, one more.
Uh,
Can't go in the field without it. Gotta have it.
This one's pretty easy and cheesy, but I guess I'd have to say the tag for whatever state I'm hunting in.
That'd be a good one to have.
Okay.
Yeah. But
You want to be legal?
yeah, well, the problem is like I always buy all my tags for wherever I'm hunting all like in the same week in like August usually. So I have this pile of tags, and then so I got to make sure that I have to like if I'm traveling, I don't like taking them all with me when I travel places because I don't want to lose them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always got to double check to make sure I got the right tag for whatever state that I'm actually going to.
So
Pulls out his binder. It's just, oh no, Wyoming, Idaho,
Rolodex.
Ohio, no, Illinois. I've got them all color coded and
Or-
alphabetical.
I guess, or a good knife too, just to plan
Mhm.
ahead.
I will accept a knife. What's your go-to? Fixed blade, folding, brand.
So what I've found myself using the most recently is probably the Outdoor Edge. I don't even remember.
Yes,
Those are
with
great.
the exchangeable blades.
Yes.
yeah,
Dude.
they're sweet.
I found those at Sportsman's Warehouse last year, and I use them for all my Euro mounts. I've never been more impressed on a price level
Yep.
by a knife. I've showed those to you. You
Yep,
use
they're
those
awesome.
to cape the stuff out. It's like
Yeah.
$30 for the knife, and then it's the great value version of the Havalon.
Yes.
And these blades, I think, what was it, like a 6-pack is like $10 or $12.
Yep.
Of these blades, and they're like razor sharp.
they're
You
freaking
just-
sharp.
You just slide them in and out. They are solid knives. So that's a good choice.
Yep.
I've ran one of those for a while now.
Yeah.
That's-
So, and I carry a few of the Outdoor Edge products. There's the swing blade too
Okay.
that I really liked. I'm not crazy about the actual blade itself, but the other part you use for gutting, like
Little hook?
have you seen
Yep.
those? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like, well, it's almost like a full length. It almost looks like a fillet knife, but the end of it is kind of like a little ball that is not sharp, so it can't dig down further. So it just runs right up through the deer easily.
Well, that's
is nice.
awesome.
That's a
That's
cool
cool.
design.
All right. What's the one piece of gear that you own, weapon aside, every time you pull it out, it's like Christmas morning and you just get giddy and you're just like, I'm so glad I have this.
Probably. I'm really partial to my release.
What are you running for your release? I didn't get a good close look at it today when we were shooting.
True Ball Blade Pro Mini.
Is that back tension, hook, thumb?
It's a thumb.
Okay.
So it's just ergonomically it fits pretty much perfectly in my hand for how I like to shoot. And there's so much adjustability with it that I have it set exactly to how I want to shoot it. And my goal is to shoot it actually like a back tension, but it's just perfect for how I shoot. Like I haven't come across another thumb release that seems to fit and shoot as well as this does.
That's awesome.
So
That's cool. All right, last question before we go into our lightning round.
I've got one too.
Oh, Hunter's got it. Wait,
I know.
Hunter's got a question?
It's a rare occurrence, but I do have one too. So we'll do yours first.
has spoken.
This is-
Everyone
this
quiet.
is a
I got a
phenomenon.
question.
It's a phenomenon. I bow down.
We'll do yours
Please,
first.
no.
All right,
This is the first time I think you've ever asked a question.
You know, it's not huge, but I've been dying to ask it. You've been mentioning states a lot.
yep.
What is your favorite state to hunt for whitetail, and why?
Probably Kentucky.
Really?
Whoa.
I would not have guessed that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
For the
cool.
deer, for the
Okay.
landscape.
All the above. So
No kidding.
Western Kentucky, where I go down there, it's super rolling and hilly. I mean, like there's some of their ridges there we would call them mountains here in Michigan.
Just the foothills that are just, they're tall.
But so there's that. I love the fact that their season opens super early.
Velvet
so-
early?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they open the first so this year they're opening late because they open the first Saturday in September every year. So it's September 7th this year. But it is feasibly possible for, depending on leap years and whatnot, it can open on September 1st or 2nd. So I like how early they open. I like how their late season goes into January. Like usually it kind of rotates too, but it's near mid-January by the time they close. The herd down there, from what I've seen, is the numbers are just massive. They have giant bucks. It's a 1 buck state. So when people punch their tag, they're done. And the interesting thing is they almost have, in my opinion anyway, like 2 subspecies of deer that you're after, actually.
Hmm.
So I was down there with a buddy one year, and I killed a 4.5-year-old 8. He killed a 4.5-year-old 8. And we know that because the guy that we were hunting with had history with both these bucks for years. My buddy's deer was like 147-inch 8-point. My deer was like 127-inch 8-point. But when we laid the deer out side by side, from the front of his chest to the deer's butt, my deer was like 1.5 feet longer.
Limo deer.
Wow.
Actually. So like you'll actually see 2 different, like they call them like hills deer or something, which are the little dinky bodied ones. Like I killed a 9-point down there one year. I'm like, I just killed a 160. And then we walked up on it and I'm like, oh, this deer is 120 pounds. But that buck was 5 years old.
South Florida deer.
Yeah,
like
Florida deer.
like it's crazy. Like they have like southern subspecies deer, and then they have Midwestern giant.
Because it's right in that belt line
yeah.
area. That's fascinating.
Little chode deer.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It was really interesting. But so I like Kentucky for sure.
Huh.
Okay, so that spurs me on to want to have you back for a second episode where we do strictly deer talk.
For sure.
Because the knowledge, we like bringing people in who have the knowledge to back it up, because we've gone into it hardcore on Michigan becoming a $1 state with APRs. Like there's so many things that we could do to reform Michigan that could turn us into Iowa or Ohio within 2 years. Easy, because we're losing so much revenue.
Yep.
Out of state revenue. No one from Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, nobody's coming to Michigan to hunt.
Yeah.
It's just plain and simple. It's like, who's going to pay an out of state tag to come shoot a 130-inch whitetail?
Right. Exactly.
It just doesn't happen. So I would love, if you're open to it, I would love to have you back to do an episode strictly geared towards like different states, land management, growing deer, like what we can do as a state to get into that, if that's something you'd be interested in. Because it seems like you've got a lot of knowledge in that area.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to.
So we'll add that to the calendar. Meanwhile, since you have to go, let's dive into our lightning round. How the lightning round works, we've got a bunch of questions.
Okay.
We're going to throw them at you. It's quick, fast, first answer that comes to mind, and then we will wrap up.
Okay.
So, Reed, lead us off.
Would you rather shoot a Boone and Crockett typical or non-typical?
Typical.
Nice.
Would you rather own a 3,000-acre high-fence ranch in Texas or a 500-acre unfenced farm in
500.
Michigan?
500.
Dang, didn't even get the end of the question.
quick.
Let's go.
All right. Mauled by a bear or bit by a rattlesnake?
Ooh, I'm going to take the rattlesnake.
Oh.
Be attacked by a moose or a wild boar?
Moose, because I think it'd stomp me to death fast enough that I wouldn't have to live through it.
There's a photographer.
I don't know.
There's a photographer out there that knows all about it.
Yes, sir.
Check out our last episode.
Ooh.
All expense Wyoming elk hunt or Canadian moose hunt?
Elk.
All right.
favorite outdoor brand.
Easton.
Nice.
Okay.
Ooh.
Okay.
Go-to snack in the field.
I don't eat snacks.
I just absorb this sun.
I don't need them.
You don't snack when you're yoked like that.
No,
You have to when
actually
you're yoked like that.
I actually
You
have
don't understand.
I actually have a terrible diet. Like
You
horrid.
just must work. You just must train a ton. Then
No, so I was in camp in Missouri a few years back with one of my buddies, and my dad was down there in camp with us. So the place we were hunting with had us all in one bedroom, and so our alarm goes off at like 4:30 or whatever in the morning, and I brought a bunch of snacks and stuff with me like I always do. So my alarm goes off, lights are off in the room, it's completely pitch dark, there's nothing there. I roll over. And I always eat Hostess cupcakes in the morning.
Nice.
So I roll
This
over.
man is a legend.
So I roll over and I grab two, and I'm still laying in bed. And I set one on my stomach there, and then one here, and then I open it up. And my buddy across the room can hear the wrapper, and he's like, "Casey," and I was like, "What's up, Dean?" And he's like, "Are you eating cupcakes right now?" And I was like, "Yes." And he didn't say anything. And then I go on to the second one. He can hear it. He's like, "Dude, are you eating a second one right now?" I was like, "Yes, absolutely." But going to your question, I don't eat when I'm in the field anything at all.
Huh.
Well, yeah, because you're full from the morning cupcakes.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't need to.
You don't need them.
All right. You have a bounty on your head. Would you rather be hunted by Ted Nugent or Fred Bear?
Fred Bear, because he would stick with the archery gear, and Ted would just break out a rifle and smack me from a very long distance, for sure.
Next.
Step on a bear trap or fall from a tree stand.
Are we talking like newer bear trap or like
Old school.
Old school
Hugh
chompers.
Glass.
Rusted.
okay.
Tetanus.
I'm gonna go with the bear trap. I'll take the bear trap.
Ugh.
My stands are pretty high. I don't want to fall from any of them. Like, I hunt high.
All right, last one. You have to kill a deer. All you have are jumper cables, vice grips, paracord, and a golf sand wedge. How are you going to do it?
Wait, repeat that. Golf sand wedge, paracord,
Vice grips,
jumper cables.
Those are your tools.
Oh, but there's no battery with the jumper cables.
Nope.
Okay. So I would probably try to set up. I would go to one of my sets where I know for a fact that the deer are going to be using, and try to snare one, hopefully a small one, and then run out there with the sand wedge.
Bludgeon.
Yep. And just keep swinging until it wasn't twitching.
One good hit. That's all you need.
Yep.
That's awesome. Okay, so where can everybody find you? On the social medias, the YouTube, outside of my Outdoor TV.
So our new episodes air on the Outdoor Channel.
Okay.
After 6 months has passed, they get pushed over onto My Outdoor TV. And then the Archer uses Facebook a lot and Instagram. And then I pretty much just use Instagram for my personal account.
What's your Instagram?
It is at American Archer CC.
Perfect. Awesome. And if you want to find him in person, you just head on down to the Demmer Center in, technically, is that East Lansing or is that Okemos?
It's actually a Lansing address.
Is that a Lansing address? Okay.
Yeah.
So Lansing, Michigan, Demmer Center, right off of MSU's campus. It's a killer facility. Apparently they have a walking 3D course now.
Yep.
Long range, 3D shoot, indoor. Now they have techno hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So full setup for those of you guys who have lost your trust in the local archery shops. We now have a good spot for you and us. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We really appreciate it. As always, we grow organically. So if you learned something cool, make sure to share the show with a friend. Hit the subscribe button. We drop episodes every Tuesday. The link tree for all of our spaces is in our Instagram, which is ataaso.outfitters. That can get you to our Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and then these full-length videos are on YouTube if you like consuming your podcasts on a video format. Reed's just been pounding a box of goldfish this entire time.
Hey, no. These are flavor blastered extra cheddar.
Blasted.
You can't just get the regular goldfish. You got to go flavor
can't.
blasted.
You have to go flavor blasted. Yeah, I agree.
And don't even screw around with those rainbow colored ones.
Who knows? It's the red dye 40. Anyway, off track. Dude, thanks so much for taking the time. We really appreciate you coming down. We're excited to get you back here for Deer Talk because you seem like a wealth of knowledge. And I am thrilled to get my bow actually tuned for the first time in forever after I go pull your arrow out of the log and get it for you.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, we will see you on the next episode. As always, I'm Caleb. We've got Reed, Hunter, and Casey Christman with American Archer. We'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.